What's happening, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas here, back for another episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. 1 day later from the day one, 2 days later, I guess I could say 1 day, 2 days, however you want to look at it. 1 day after the day 2 of the National Football League's NFL draft. Of course, yesterday was my birthday. Thank you to everybody that sent out happy birthday posts on my timeline, wish me a happy birthday, whether they're supporters of the show, whether they, have known me for a long time. I really appreciate it. Yesterday was my 29th birthday. I get to spend it with the family. It was a nice day. And I'm, obviously excited for the rest of this weekend as well, before I do a little bit of traveling on my own and, make some things happen here, during my vacation from the day job. And of course, keep you guys up to date on all things NFL draft. NFL draft season is here. It has arrived. It is in full swing. And I want to hop on here and give you guys the picks that I believe are some of the best picks in this year's draft thus far. And they are few and far between. Let me tell you, in terms of value and in terms of some of the mock drafts that I did, there are a lot of guys that fell out of that first round that I didn't expect to fall out of that first round. And of course, I have to give my take on the Buffalo Bills 2021 draft choices thus far. I asked you guys kind of what is your take on the Bills draft thus far? And before I dive into things full swing, I have to remind you guys on the ticker below, subscribe to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Feel free to leave a review as well on Apple. The reviews matter. The reviews help as well. Day one of the NFL draft was a pleasure to be on the Built in Buffalo Draft Super Show. I greatly enjoyed that. Allowing myself to kind of be on a panel was very fun. And getting the invite to hop on that show was a great time. I had a little bit of technical difficulties as I was on the show. And, there were times where I was in it, where I wasn't in it, where I was out of it. It is what it is. It's part of the times that we're living in. Ideally, I'd like to do these shows with someone here in front of me. That'd be cool. But we got to do it online while we're still in the midst of this crazy coronavirus, COVID, pandemic and all that stuff. So, I'm just feeling very thankful, very happy, very excited for, not just this draft, but the rest of this offseason covering the Bills for the Bills Mafia out there. And as well, giving my take on, the 32 or 31, I should say, other 31 teams in the NFL. So few surprises up top, right? I mean, few surprises to start out of the gate. Trevor Lawrence going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. No shock there. Okay. No shock there in the slightest. But I feel that there were some shocks in this draft. And really the shock value starts for me at second overall. I think the Jets are going to maybe not necessarily come to regret the selection of Zach Wilson, but I feel like Justin Fields, Trey Lance offered a lot more upside in comparison to Zach Wilson. And then in terms of Trey Lance going to the 49ers, word on the street was that it was really between Trey Lance and Mac Jones, and the Niners went with Trey Lance. I think that that's a great pick. I think that's the right pick in terms of athletic upside, in terms of the ceiling. Trey Lance has a much higher ceiling in terms of what he can do physically, athletically. I really like what he brings to the table size-wise, and I feel like the 49ers are going to reap the reward of that pick, whether it's this year or next year, in the coming years. We know for a fact, we know with the utmost certainty that the 49ers are going to eventually reap the reward of that pick. I think that he is a very good player. As long as they develop him right, he could be even better than good. He could be great. I really like Trey Lance a lot. I really do. I feel like he is unsung hero in this 2021 quarterback draft class. Whether we see it sooner rather than later remains to be seen with Jimmy Garoppolo in the building, but I feel like that was a really good pick. And I mean, I'm going through here all the picks in this first round, and this is really the round is like the money round. That's the round that everyone's got their attention on, of course. Kyle Pitts going to Atlanta. Not a shock, okay? Not a shock in terms of Pitts, great athletic talent, one of the best offensive players in this draft, but I did believe that the Falcons would trade down. They didn't. They stood pat with Kyle Pitts, took their player and moved on. Jamar Chase reuniting with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. Penei Sewell, Detroit. J.C. Horn, first corner off the board prior to Patrick Surtain Jr., which I thought Surtain Jr. was the best corner in this draft, but Carolina had J.C. Horn on their board higher. Patrick Surtain goes to Denver. Devonta Smith goes to Philly, as Philly made a trade up with the Dallas Cowboys to move up 2 spots to take the Heisman Trophy winner. And then the 11th overall selection sandwiched in between Philly and Dallas taking Micah Parsons. But one pick prior to that, we got the Chicago Bears with, I think, the best value pick of the top 15, and that is Justin Fields. I think for whatever reason, Justin Fields was frowned upon by the NFL media leading up to the NFL draft, and this is just a classic case of another player that was labeled as something that he's just simply not, and that negative traction towards Justin Fields pretty much dictated the pace of where he would go. And for the life of me, I just don't understand why Justin Fields was rated as this quote-unquote character issue type player, when in my opinion, Justin Fields is a character guy, a high character guy. He's shown toughness, he's shown discipline, he's shown leadership. And for the Chicago Bears to finally get their guy, finally get their quarterback in Justin Fields, I think that Justin Fields should be starting week 1 for the Chicago Bears. No development, no Andy Dalton, none of that. Justin Fields should be the guy for the Chicago Bears coming into his rookie season, coming into his rookie year. I don't want to hear any talk, any conversation about Andy Dalton or Nick Foles being the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields belongs out there. Now, they might feel differently. They might feel like, Justin Fields should get the development that he needs. I don't feel that way. I feel like this guy could potentially be the rookie of the year in 2021. Devonta Smith, Philly gets a big weapon there for Jalen Hurts that, reunites Hurts with Devonta Smith. That's great. Rashawn Slater goes to the Chargers. They get protection for him. The New York Jets made a big move back into the top 15 to take a guard. They traded multiple picks to do so, a few top 100 picks to do so, and taking Elijah Vera Tucker out of USC. They're trying to get protection for their new quarterback in Zach Wilson. And Vera Tucker is one of the best guards in this draft. Make no mistake about it. But I thought the Jets gave up a little bit too much to go back into the top 15 to take a guard. You go up into the top 15 to take maybe a receiver or a corner or, a running back if you really, really like Najee Harris or Travis Etienne. But they go back into the top 15, to take a guard. This next pick here, 15th overall, the New England Patriots select Mac Jones, who falls to New England at 15. I had a distinct feeling that Mac Jones would be the last quarterback out of that big, top 5 quarterbacks in this draft, that he'd be the last one picked, and that it could possibly be the New England Patriots picking him. New England or Chicago, I felt like were one of the 2 teams that could possibly take Mac Jones. Just throwing Chicago out there due to the fact that I didn't see Justin Fields being available for the Chicago Bears. He was available. They take him. So then Mac Jones slides to 15th overall, and Mac Jones is the next quarterback of the New England Patriots. If the Patriots try to pull this, Mac Jones, it needs his development. He's our guy. The best way to develop a quarterback is to play him. That's the best way to develop a quarterback. That's the best way for him to get the reps that he needs in order to get better. And all this baloney about Justin Fields sitting behind Andy Dalton, the baloney about Mac Jones sitting behind Cam Newton. Cam Newton was brutal last year for the New England Patriots. And you can call it, maybe he didn't have the weapons that he needed. Maybe, the line wasn't as good as it needed to be. You had some players on the defensive side of the ball for New England opting out. Regardless of the situation, Cam Newton was terrible. And the New England Patriots needed an improvement there, whether it was Mac Jones, whether it was Fields, no matter who it was. New England needed to get a quarterback in this draft. And I will say this, for all my, trepidations with Mac Jones off the field, because there is a little bit of a record there off the field that is not too good, I will say that, Mac Jones, skill set wise, is as comparable to Tom Brady as any quarterback in this draft, or even any quarterback in last year's draft, or any quarterback in the year prior, to this draft. A couple years back, now we've seen some great quarterbacks come out of the NFL draft, but in terms of getting the ball out of his hand quickly, and in terms of running a patented West Coast offense, Mac Jones is extremely good at doing that. Just those two things alone, getting the ball out of his hand and running an offense, Mac Jones is pretty good at that. But the offense that Mac Jones played in was highly talented. Now, I will say that the Patriots offense this season, heading into this season, compared to last season, is far more talented, obviously with Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. You got two safety valves for Mac Jones right out of the gate that I think Mac Jones should be definitely taking advantage of his rookie season, and that is with Mac Jones starting. I want Mac Jones to start if I'm a Patriots fan. I'm not, obviously. You look at what's behind me on the broadcast here. For those of you that are watching the show, I'm a Bills fan, of course, but Mac Jones gives the Patriots the best chance to win. You know what you have in Cam Newton, and what you don't have in Cam Newton, most importantly, is a quarterback that can win you more than 7 games. He's not that guy anymore. He's just not that guy. So moving on from that, I do think that pick by the Patriots was a good one. I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out. I think it has the potential to be a good pick. Will it matter in this year's AFC East, given that Buffalo is the favorite? I mean, they're the favorite. Miami has a really good defense that they've plucked and added to over the years with Brian Flores as their head coach. The Jets, they're in the midst of a rebuild, but Mac Jones gives the New England Patriots a better chance to win than Cam Newton does right now. And that's just a simple fact. I hope to see, I don't hope to see, but I expect to see the Patriots continue to, put Mac Jones in a positive place to succeed. He gives them the best chance to win. Zaven Collins, 16th overall to the Arizona Cardinals. Some of the broadcast guys that I was on with on Built in Buffalo, they said that Zaven Collins was a reach. I don't think Zaven Collins was a reach for the Cardinals. Zaven Collins made sense for the Cardinals, due in large part to the fact that he just simply fits their defense with who they have athletically. They got athletes on defense. They got J.J. Watt. They got Simmons. And Zaven Collins is that pass rushing type linebacker out of Tulsa that I think fits that defense really well. So that was a pick that I really liked. Biggest reach of the draft, the pick that had me going, what the hell is going on, is the Las Vegas Raiders taking Alex Leatherwood out of Alabama. I had Leatherwood as a second or third rounder. He should be going yesterday, not day one, not night one. Alex Leatherwood looked as shocked as anyone that he was picked in the first round. The Raiders made a massive reach. Miami Dolphins go after a pass rusher out of the University of Miami, the U. They go after Jalen Phillips, solid defensive end. Washington football team takes linebacker Jamin Davis. The New York Giants select Kadarius Toney, wide receiver out of Florida. I like that pick. Maybe I thought Greg Newsome Jr., a corner at a Northwestern, would go to the Giants at that selection. Kadarius Toney was the pick there. They want that offensive firepower for Danny Jones. Really solid pick here by the Colts, 21st overall. They go with Kwity Paye, solid pass rusher out of Michigan. You start to see some pass rushers go in Phillips and Kwity Paye. Tennessee Titans go with Caleb Farley. Great athlete, but he's got some injury concerns. Minnesota Vikings select Christian Darrisaw, offensive tackle out of Virginia. And then 2 running backs back-to-back, and this is what I predicted, that the Steelers would go with Najee Harris. He fits their style, that bouncy in between the tackles type style that they've been looking for quite some time, that they didn't get in James Conner. Najee Harris is a little bit more elusive than James Conner. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think, make one of the best picks of the first round, and I love the fact that you have the storyline behind it with Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson, first overall pick, 25th overall pick, Travis Etienne out of Clemson. The teammates are reunited. I love that. That makes the Jacksonville Jaguars a much more exciting team to watch in 2021 than they were in 2020. Safe to say. The two best players on the Clemson Tigers in the last few seasons are heading to Jacksonville. That's really cool. I like that. I think that that's really awesome. And I think Travis Etienne, as much as a James Robinson guy as I am, we are in a league where now you have two running backs run a gauntlet in the National Football League on each team, toting the rock. And I think that Travis Etienne with James Robinson is an awesome tandem for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You can take the pressure off of Trevor Lawrence with those two running backs right out of the gate. And it's not like the Jacksonville Jaguars don't have a solid crop of receivers as well. So we're inching closer to what everyone's looking forward to, of course, the 30th overall pick, and what's my take on that with the Buffalo Bills. But to run through here, 26th overall, the Cleveland Browns select Greg Newsome II, a really great pick by the Cleveland Browns. I really like Greg Newsome in this draft. The Ravens get the very athletic Rashad Bateman, a wide receiver out of Minnesota. New Orleans Saints go a little bit high, a little bit of a reach here as a defensive end in terms of the rankings go, in terms of analysts and stuff. But the Saints had Peyton Turner out of Houston, defensive end, rated highly on their board. They take him 28th overall. Green Bay Packers select Eric Stokes, and then Eric Stokes. And then 30th overall, of course, we shift gears here to the Buffalo Bills. What are my thoughts on the Buffalo Bills selections? Okay, and this was a really tough selection moment, I should say, for the Buffalo Bills. And, man, I mean, you still had some quality guys on the board, guys that could be, fitting, I guess, as far as fits within the roster, as far as needs. And, man, I think that this is a tough one. My thoughts on the Buffalo Bills draft selections thus far. We'll start off with 30th overall. Gregory Rizzo, defensive end out of the U. Miami had two defensive ends in Jalen Phillips, of course, and Gregory Rizzo. Now, the tough thing with Gregory Rizzo is that he opted out last season. He didn't play due to COVID. He was worried about getting his mom, his family, and everything, everybody sick. Power to him. That was his decision. That was his right. They gave him the choice. He made the choice. That's fine. I'm not even looking at that as a problem. That doesn't even matter to me that Gregory Rizzo opted out last year and didn't play. The year prior to that, he had 15 and a half sacks. That's a lot of sacks in college football. That's a lot of sacks, period. No matter how you look at it, collegiately, pro, that's a lot of sacks. Chase Young was first in sacks in the nation. Gregory Rizzo was second. Chase Young's a pretty damn good player. If we're looking at it that way, Chase Young was a little bit ahead of Gregory Rizzo in that stat that season, 2019, and Gregory Rizzo was trailing him. I think that shows me that Rizzo, collegiately, was a pretty great player. But the tough thing with a defensive end, shifting gears from the collegiate level to the pro level, these pro tackles are not falling for that first move. They're not falling for that second move. You have to put a combination of moves together that can allow yourself to get past that tackle or that guard, depending on who's lined up on you. And with Rizzo, I think physically, at the collegiate level, he was able to do a lot of great things in the ACC. Physically, 6'7", 265 pounds. Collegiately, that's pretty damn good. Pro, and how he shifts towards the pro level, he's got the accolades collegiately. He was an all-conference honors player and was named the ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year. That's great, okay? But How he will translate to the pros is what matters now that he is a pro. Anything that he did collegiately is noted, but I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but in terms of how he translates to the pro game, he won't be able to do the same things that he did in college. And I'm talking repertoire, moves wise. But I will say that there is a fit for Gregory Rizzo on this team as long as he does the right things. And the right things mean, can he gain, 15, 20 pounds? Can he get bigger? Can he gain some bulk and still have the same fluidity that he had as a 265-pound defensive end? He's a very tall man. They say he's 6'7". That's tall in and of itself. He looked 6'8" when I watched the Buffalo Bills, app, watching the videos on the app, and you see how massive this man is. He's a big guy. Questioning the pick is one thing when you don't really have in mind a defensive end. I thought going into the draft, there were plenty of directions that this team could go. They could go defensive end. They could go corner. They could go wide receiver. Wouldn't have shocked me at all. Of course, running back, offensive line. They could have went in a lot of different directions. That was what I said specifically on the pre-show, is that the Bills could go in plenty of different directions. We got to be prepared for whatever direction they decide to go in. And going after defensive end is not a bad move. It's not a bad direction as far as the position targeting that position, making that position younger, making that position better. Because let's face it, not only do the Buffalo Bills have problems rushing the quarterback and pressuring the quarterback and hurrying the quarterback last year, their defensive line is old. Mario Addison, he's up there. He's been in this league a long time. Jerry Hughes, he's up there. He's been in this league a long time. They drafted A.J. Epinesa last year, and he was in a very limited role. He was playing behind those guys. I expect the same to be said for Gregory Rizzo. A rotation is what Gregory Rizzo will obviously be a part of. But I think he will be sitting behind and learning from Addison and Hughes, and maybe even a little bit of A.J. Epinesa. Epinesa's role will probably be about 50% in comparison to 25%, whereas Rizzo's role will probably be around 25%. And within that 25%, 30% of snaps that he's playing, you hope that, he is a factor, that he is a factor his rookie year. Not an X factor, but a factor his rookie year. There's a big difference. X factor, I'm thinking year 2, year 3. A factor within the defense his rookie season. And what's very interesting is when you look at how the Bills' season ended, what weren't they able to do against some of the best teams in the AFC? They weren't able to pressure the quarterback, whether it was against Baltimore, whether it was against Kansas City, whether it was against Indy. They were not able to pressure the quarterback in those 3 games. When they did get pressure on Rivers, on Lamar Jackson, on Pat Mahomes, they made mistakes. Those quarterbacks made mistakes, or they looked human, I should say, with those 3 guys, in particular Pat Mahomes. He looked human. So I don't question why they took a defensive end. I get it. I'm not shocked by it. But you would have liked to have seen a little bit more of an immediate impact player. I don't know how much of an immediate impact Rizzo will have. I'm not questioning whether he won't have any impact. I'm just questioning whether he'll have an immediate impact in this defense right out of the gate. I hope he does. If he does, that's a bonus. If he does, I'm wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong in that case. But if he doesn't, won't shock me either. I thought Adafe Owe, Joe Tryon, picks that were made after the Bills selected Gregory Rizzo were guys that could make more of an immediate impact. But Leslie Frazier, Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane in particular, collaborating on this pick, those are the guys that will, obviously Brandon Beane, the GM, head coach Sean McDermott, and the guy that's going to be coaching him up, Leslie Frazier. They saw something physically in Gregory Rizzo that I see. A guy that has unique length for defensive end. Unique length that you create that length, you're creating that space between yourself and the offensive lineman, whether he's on the left side or the right side. And dare I say it, I see potential for Gregory Rizzo, barring that he bulks up, to line up on the inside next to Ed Oliver. And he's a little bit undersized for a defensive tackle. If he even does gain 20 pounds, 285, that's small for a defensive tackle. He is a true defensive end, I think. But in certain instances, I could see him lined up as a defensive tackle to provide that speed that he has as a pass rusher. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier use this kid. And I think everybody else is too. We move on to the second round. We go through some of the guys that I really liked that didn't go to Buffalo. Asante Samuel Jr., Los Angeles Chargers select him. Liam Eichenberg, offensive tackle, goes to Miami Dolphins. You have a few players here that I really like. Azeez Ojulari, a defensive end out of Georgia. He falls to 50th overall to the New York Giants. That's a really great pick by the Giants. And Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah goes 52nd to the Cleveland Browns. And the Buffalo Bills select in the second round, 61st overall. They select Carlos Basham Jr., another defensive end. Doubling up on defensive ends, doubling up on pass rushers. Basham Jr. out of Wake Forest, second all-time in Wake Forest history in sacks. Carlos Basham Jr. was listed as one of those guys in the day two scene that would be a factor player. 6'5", 285. He actually has the size that you would covet. So it is a little odd in the sense that the Bills took a defensive end in the first round that doesn't have the size that you would covet in a defensive end quite yet in the NFL, whereas in the second round they selected a guy that does have the size. But the Bills wanted to shore up that defensive line. They need long-term solutions within the defensive line. And they got them. I don't expect the defensive line, in particular the defensive ends, to be much of a priority, being that they've loaded up on defensive ends in the last two drafts. You got A.J. Epinesa, Gregory Rizzo, and Carlos Basham Jr. You're good now. I don't hope to see another defensive end pick. I would certainly hope not, because I think that there are other needs on this team, not necessarily needs, but positions that they could target. And we go into the third round, and one of those positions was actually filled with the 93rd overall pick. Now, the Bills haven't moved up or down the draft board in this entire draft thus far, but the Bills, with the 93rd overall pick, take offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa, Spencer Brown, who is a mammoth of a man, 6'8", 311 pounds. And yeah, Northern Iowa, not the biggest school, but you watch the tape and you say to yourself, this dude has all the makings of a possible right tackle for a long time. And this goes back to one of the biggest question marks that the Buffalo Bills have on this roster, whether or not Cody Ford is a guard or a tackle. They still don't know. So if you don't know whether a second-round investment is a guard or a tackle, you got to find a potential option there. And I think that in the third round, the Bills got a player in Spencer Brown that could be a long-term solution to the right tackle situation. Darrell Williams is the right tackle right now. He was phenomenal last season. He did a really good job, but he's not a long-term answer. You know, he signed a 3-year deal, then he's probably out, riding off into the sunset, right? So Spencer Brown, it's one of those guys that could come in, be that right tackle potentially. I like what I see. If he's developed properly, he could be that guy, and I like this pick a lot. Game is won in the trenches. Football is won in the trenches. We got only a few picks into the fourth round as it's live right now, but some of the other picks that went after: Ben Cleveland, guard out of Georgia; Robert Hainsey, a lineman out of Notre Dame; Ronnie Perkins falls very far to the New England Patriots in the third round. I thought Ronnie Perkins was a second-round pick. Trey McKitty out of Georgia to the Chargers. Denver takes Quinn Meinertz, center out of Wisconsin Whitewater. Nanshawn Wright, corner out of Oregon State, goes to Dallas. Elijah Molden, a corner out of Washington. And Ifitu Melifonwu, corner out of Syracuse. Aubrey Thomas, corner out of Michigan. Melifonwu goes to Detroit. Molden goes to the Titans, of course, and San Fran takes Aubrey Thomas. LA Rams go with Ernest Jones, linebacker out of Carolina. And the Ravens take Brandon Stevens, corner out of SMU. A lot of corners. Baron Browning goes to the Denver Broncos, and I did see the New York Jets selected a running back that I really like in Michael Carter out of UNC. Watch a lot of Notre Dame, watch a lot of Tar Heels games. Michael Carter is a really good running back. So that was a nice value pick there by the Jets. The Bills do not pick until their next pick, way down the list of things, as they don't have a fourth-round pick, but I believe they have multiple fifths. In the fifth round, they pick 161st overall. So we got a long wait. 161st overall and 174th overall. 2 picks in the fifth round for the Bills. And then we're looking at, the 6th and 7th round. And who's to say that they won't find a stud in these rounds, that any team won't find a stud in these rounds? If we've seen the last few years, a lot of late round guys have made massive impacts in the National Football League, exponential, legendary impacts in the, NFL. So 213 overall for the Bills as well in the 6th, and then 236 in the 7th for the Bills, and then the draft for Buffalo is over. But so far, controlling the line of scrimmage has the thought process of controlling the line of scrimmage has been emphasized in these first 3 picks by the Buffalo Bills, whether it's the defensive line or the offensive line. And I like that approach. The needs are not too plentiful outside of that. Could we see a corner? Could we see another running back? Could we see a safety? Could we see a linebacker? Could we see a tight end? Those are the positions that I think left you take flyers on. Any one of those positions you take flyers on that are left. So let's get to some comments here. And Adam Huxell says, my belief, Detroit should have followed Cincy and taken wide receiver. Chargers were where first O-lineman should have gone. Can't be safe in top 10. So it's tough because Penei Sewell is probably the only true potential Hall of Fame talent that this draft has. And that's big praise by me to say that, but I'm not the only guy saying that. And Penei Sewell is a lineman that Detroit, they got a lot of work to do on that offensive line if they want to protect their investment in Jared Goff. If you want to call it an investment, they traded in Stafford. Goff was essentially the throw-in of that trade, but I think you got reason to believe that they need to protect whoever their quarterback is, whether it's Goff or somebody else in the future. And they did that. So do you think the Pats make a day 3 deal to get Julio Jones? That terrifies me. Adam Huxell. I'm not really too scared of that. If it was Julio Jones, 3-4 years ago, I'd say, wow, man, that's a really good trade. I'm nervous. But Julio Jones has been fairly quiet these last few years, and he's very expensive. And I think that's why the Atlanta Falcons are, trying to generate some interest as to whether or not they should trade him. I'm up in the air on that. I obviously think it makes the Patriots better if they get Julio Jones, but it's not the Julio Jones that we knew, 5-6 years ago. Mary comes on here all the time, firing comments. Love the video of Spencer Brown going through a table. Welcome to Buffalo. She also asks, do you think the Bills draft Patterson today? Jarrett Patterson, really good friend of the show as well. I've talked to him a lot over the last, 2-3 years, and I really like him as a person, not just as a football player. He's a really cool guy, very funny, very lighthearted, and very easygoing. And he communicates with Bills fans on Twitter a lot, communicates with Bills fans on Instagram a lot, and that would be very, very cool. And I know that that's something that would mean a lot to him if he were to make that transition from the Buffalo Bulls to the Buffalo Bills. And, the UB Bulls, Lance Leipold, underlying story here, Lance Leipold went from the UB Bulls to Kansas. So the UB Bulls are now in search for a new head football coach. I'll throw my hat in the ring. I'd have a 0-0 wins-loss record, but I would love to, put on some UB Bulls gear and coach the Bulls in any capacity, especially the head coach. But in any capacity, I would like that. If they could make that happen, that'd be awesome. But yeah, that's something I wanted to throw out there. J Pat, I would love to see him here in Buffalo. I saw, a couple UB players tweeting, at Patterson, hoping that he gets picked today. And I really think that he should have been picked yesterday. Third round pick in my eyes, third, fourth, rounder possibly. I hope to see him go, soon. I think he's a legitimate player, transitioning from the collegiate level at running back to the pros. I feel like he could fit in really, really well. So there you have it. Thoughts on the Bills selection so far, getting to some questions. NFL Draft Day 1 and Day 2 recap. Day 3 recap will obviously be, sometime tomorrow as we watch the draft here. I'm going to stay close to it. I got some, family in town, and I'm going to, spend some time with them. But I'll be, keeping you guys up to date, throwing out my opinions and some facts, some factoids about some of these players that get picked by Buffalo. The Jacksonville Jaguars made a pick there. They got the rugby star. So we got another, rugby star. Jay Tufele goes to, well, actually, Jay Tufele was out of USC, but the pick was actually from the UK. I believe there is a UK connection there with Jay Tufele, and I thought that was really, really, really cool. Jacksonville's had a really good draft. Dare I say it, the Jets have had a really good draft. Miami has had a really good draft. The Patriots have had a really good draft so far. But I'm still feeling like this AFC East is ours. Call me biased, call me crazy, but I'm feeling like the AFC East is still ours to win. So with that being said, I'm Ryan Thomas. My Twitter handle in the corner there, at Ryan Thomas Take. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at that handle. Feel free to give me a follow on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Leave a review. Spotify, Google Podcasts. I'm everywhere, man. I'm everywhere. So stay tuned for more. Take care.